Hey guys, welcome back, and in this tutorial we're going to talk about how to create a AI using a generic character. The difference between a humanoid and a generic character is that with humanoid we can basically retarget any humanoid animations to any character as long as he is a humanoid. A humanoid consists on a character with 2 legs, 2 arms, a torso, a head, and pretty much this structure of bones. It doesn't necessarily need to be human. It can be a bear, a fox, I don't know, anything really, as long as it has 2 legs, 2 arms, etc. But with generic characters, let me import here. I don't need the animator controller because we're going to create our own based on one of our animator controllers. So let's hit import here, and basically a generic model contains their own animations created specifically for this model. We cannot retarget other animation like a walking for this character. So today I'm going to use this cactus character here, created by Maxine. It's a pretty awesome character. It's free and it contains 6 animations, enough to get us started. So let's begin. And to start, let me go back to my scene, and in here let's drag and drop the prefab. Ooh, it's a little bigger, it's a little gigantic maybe, so let's fix that by going to the FBX, not the prefab but the FBX, and as you can see here is a animation type generic, but we want to change the scale of this character. So let's try 0.1 maybe and see what happens. Ooh, as you can see, when changing the scale factor, it usually will break your prefab. So we will need to modify the FBX directly and get rid of this prefab. Now let's go back to our scale. It's still a little too big, so let's try 0.04. Looks good. Let's use the same material as the prefab. It's this one for the eyes, and great. Now we can create another prefab cactus to replace the one that we lost. Cool. Now when working with generic anime characters, you need to also use the scale factor in your animations. So let's use here, hit apply, and okay, now my animations will play correctly. Otherwise, if I'm using the wrong scale factor, it would affect when the animation played. It will look like that our prefab was. Okay, now we have our character ready to be a AI. And what our AI needs? If you look into our other prefabs here, we need a animator, a rigid body, a capsule collider, a nav mesh agent, a FSM behavior controller, a control AI. We have a few types, as you can see here: control AI combat, control AI melee, which is different of the combat. I'm going to explain the difference on the next tutorial, and the shooter controller. So let's go back to our example here. FSM behavior controller, a AI controller, and that's it. To start, that's enough components. So okay, let's add those components into our character here. animator, we already have one. So a capsule collider, I will adjust the values here. Looks good. A rigid body, let's add some mass here, and we need to freeze the rotation X and Z so he doesn't fall. And now a agent, nav mesh agent, we can match the height with our capsule collider height. As you can see here, it's already matched with 2. Now we need a FSM behavior controller. In this tutorial, I'm going to focus only on movement, receive damage, and animations. So let's leave the combat for the next tutorial, where I'm going to create a hitbox for each arm, and we're going to make the character has a melee behavior. I can use the civilian simple for this example. So let's add the control AI. Yep, we can use the simple one just for a civilian example. Cool, that's enough components to get us started with our generic AI. So the next thing we need is actually animations. We need an animator controller. So let's create one using as a base let me drop my character here as 3D models into my project. So the animator we are going to use is the Invector AI. Actually, let me start with the melee already, because we will already have some parameters that we're going to need later. So let me duplicate this one to not mess with the original one. Drag and drop to outside the folder, and here into my cactus. Let's assign to our animator here and open up. Cool. In here, as you can see, we're going to get rid of several things because this character has very simple animations. Let's take a look again. It's a attack. It has a dead animation, a get hit animation, an idle, and 2 walks. One is a in place, and the other is mechaning with the root motion. So first thing is that actually we want those 2 animations here to get to loop. Yep, and the walk as well, loop. Cool. So let's set these 2 animations at our Locomotion, and as you can see, this character will not strafe. He doesn't have any animation like walking backwards, walking right, forward. So let's get rid of this, and a simple idle as well. We just have one idle. Let's get rid of. We don't have crouch as well, so I'm actually able to copy this state and paste here and get rid of unnecessary things. So let's open up here, and as you can see, our template comes with a lot of animations that you can reuse on humanoid characters. Since this one is a generic, as I told before, we need to use the animations that comes with this character. Instead of using blend trees with other animations, I'm going to select the animation clip of idle and replace my blend tree with this animation clip. As you can see here, changing blend tree will delete previous blend tree. So let's delete this blend here and have a single clip that is our idle. Cool. Let's do the same for the walk. Actually, I just have one walk here, but if I change the speed, I can create something like a run and sprint behavior. So Let's do that by going to replace this one as well, and only change the speed that is playing the animation. As you can see here, it changes animation speed. So this one, and 1.25. It would be better if I have the running and sprinting animation, but this works. Now let's go back into our base layer. As you can see, we don't have any jump or airborne animations, so we can get rid of this. And the actions, we can also get rid of those, and we're going to create our own actions here, such as the get hit and the dead and the attack. We don't need the other layers because this is set to our more complex characters. So let's take a look at hit reaction works. It's located in the full body, big reaction, and our scripts will do everything to know when a hitbox collides with the character, so it triggers a reaction animation. As you can see here, we have a trigger reaction, it's a trigger. We have a hit direction, which we can trigger different animations when hitting from different angles, and a reaction ID, which you can configure a weapon to set a specific ID. For example, if I have a sword, it will be one reaction animation. If I have a axe, it will be another reaction. We can use the IDs, but in this case, again, it's very simple. We're going to use only the trigger reaction. So let's go back to our base layer in the actions and create a substate machine called hit reaction, and inside we can drag and drop our get hit. We're going to use the tag lock movement so that when this character receives damage, it will stop and play the animation. Lock movement. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is to create a transition from end state to my clip, and as a condition I'm going to use the trigger reaction, not recoil, trigger reaction, and exit when the animation is finished playing. So let's exit here. We also need to create a exit transition so it doesn't enter again into the same animation. Now let's create another one for the dead state. Let's enter here and add the dead animation clip. It will only enter here, and we don't need to create a exit transition because once the character is dead, he will be here forever. Set the condition is dead, true, he will play the dead animation. Cool. I don't need a exit transition. As I said before, it will remain here. Well, we don't need all those other layers. This one is for defense. This one is to equip weapons, defense, and small hit reactions, which will trigger the upper body, meaning that the character will stay moving and only the upper body will play the animation. The underbody, we have the turn on spot and another hit recoil, but since my character doesn't have turn on spot animations, I can get rid of all these layers, extra layers, and all of this as well. I'm going to leave the attacks here because we're going to use later on the next tutorial. We're actually going to use only a unarmed, and we can also transfer this to the base layer and remove this extra layer, but I'm going to do that on the next tutorial. Let's go back to the base layer, and as you can see, it's pretty much done here, and we remove the extra layers, but we also have a lot of extra parameters. So let's take a look of what we're going to use here. As you can see, we're going to use the inputs horizontal, vertical, and magnitude to move the character. So let's stick with those three. The turn on spot, I'm not sure, but I think the script will call eventually, so I'm going to leave it here for now. Action state, we don't use it. Is that we're using here is grounded. We're going to use actually crouching. Nope, is strafing. I think the script will also use this bool, so I'm going to leave it here. The flip animation we're not using. Ground distance and vertical velocity is better to leave. Movesets, any ideas actually except the attack we're not going to use, so remove it. Idle random, I think the script uses. I'm going to leave it. You can test and remove the parameter. If the script uses, it will only show a warning here. It will not trigger any errors. Weak attack we're going to use, but not this strong. Blocking, nope. Defense, recoil, reaction, trigger recoil, nope. Trigger reaction we're using here. Equip item, nope. Nope. Direction, nope. And reset state, let's leave it here because the attack will use it. So that's the parameters that we're, at least the basic that we need. Okay, let's go back here. Let's go to the movement options. And as you can see, this character doesn't have root motion, so let's uncheck that, and you can change the speed of the locomotion, walking, running, sprint directly here, or you can change all the animations in this option, animator speed. Now this one is important. We don't have turn on spot animation, so we need to uncheck that. If we leave it checked, the character will try to run, but he's not going to be able to actually move it because the script will tell him to actually make a quick turn. So if you're not using, make sure to turn it off. Let's assign a waypoint so we can test our character. And I think that's it. Let's take a look. We have a few errors here. Let's take a look what it is. Vector cactus transition in state. Oh, it's the strong attack that we're not using. So let's go to the full body and remove these strong attacks. Cool. Let's hit play again. Right. Our character is trolling. Let me see here. Yep. Idle. So let's try to apply some damage to him and see if the reaction will play. Right, here's. Oops, I forgot to do something very important. In order to our character receive damage, he needs to have a tag and a layer set up. That's very important. So let's head here, enemy, and the tag enemy, which is the tag and layer that our FPS controller does apply damage. So let's take a look again. And yep, he triggers the reaction animation. Let me go here so you can better see. Hit reaction, and let's go to cool. And now he's fleeing because that's the FSM behavior that the civilian simple does. Let's see if he dies after a while, because I'm pretty sure his health is low right now. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and ooh, he actually got stuck. Let's see what we did wrong here. Animator, dead, and he's interesting. The end state is setting the is that true all the time, and as you can see, the can transition to self is an option that if this bool is true, he's going to enter all the time. So let's uncheck that and leave the character, the cactus, with a max health of 10, and let's play again to see if it works. And he's dead. It works. Cool, so that was the introduction to create a generic, very simple one, a generic character. The more complex your character is, the more you will need some animator knowledge to create extra parameters and extra layers to set up your character correctly. But yeah, that's it. The next tutorial we're going to create a melee manager and turn this cactus to a cactus fighter.